Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of your content, the content you spend time researching and creating, is going nowhere. You're posting, people are liking, maybe even commenting, but that's not turning into real relationships or real results. If that happens to you, it's because what happens after you post is just as important as what you post. And that's where today's guest comes in. I'm joined by Brooke Sellas, an award-winning CEO of B Squared Media, who's here to show you how social care is a missing link between content strategy and customer experience. If you think social care is just answering DMs or complaints, think again. Today, you'll learn how small teams like yours can turn everyday comments into trust, loyalty, and actual growth with clear plays you can run. Let's dive into from content to comments to customers and how social care is your secret growth engine. This is Strategy Talks. I'll be right back.
Let's strategize together. Let's hear it from an expert. Join the conversation, it's informative and free. You and me, let's talk some strategy. Now here's your host, Dorien Morin-van.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dorien Morin-van, and I am your host. Thank you so much for being here today with us live, whether you're watching this on LinkedIn, on Facebook, or on YouTube. We'd love to know that you're here. Let us know in the comments if you're watching. And of course, because this is live, if you have questions while my guest, Brooke, and I are having a conversation, be sure to put those comments or questions in the comments below where you see this live. And we'd love to know what bubbles up for you as we have this conversation about having social care as part of your care package for your clients. So without much further ado, I'm going to bring Brooke on just 1 second. I do want to do a quick shout out to those of you who listen to Strategy Talks as a podcast. I know you're there and I appreciate you so much. So here is Brooke. How are you today, Brooke?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's always so much fun to get together with you and chit chat.
I know. We were actually starting a minute or two late because we were in the green room chit-chatting, late's whatever. We're going live, so it doesn't necessarily matter. But yeah, we were catching up on all the good things. So that's all good. So you've been talking about social care for many years. And today we're going to talk about what it means for smaller teams. Now you serve clients, enterprise clients, correct?
Yes. So typically for social care, we're talking to brands who are anywhere from, 500 million to 70 billion in that range. So enterprise, but don't fret because what we do applies to literally anyone and everyone using social media for marketing or branding.
That's awesome. All right. So first question, Brooke, when should a small team start thinking seriously about social care as a function, not just a reaction?
I think now's the time. If there were ever a time, now would be it. I mean, I think we've all seen as marketers the struggle with reach, with impressions, with engagement. All the things on social have become so much harder. And I think the key to that is we've been trained as marketers, especially social media marketers, to focus on the content on social, right? I think Jay Bear used to say if content if content is gasoline, social media, no, if content is fire, social media is the gasoline, or is it? Anyways, long story short, the emphasis has been on content since the beginning of social for years. And I think what we've seen now is a shift in consumer behavior, which then means as brands, we have to follow that shift, which is more people are using social to converse with brands, to ask questions of their peers, to research and shop right online, right on social through social commerce. And instead of content or in tandem with content, we also need to be looking at the conversations that are happening there.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So today, guys, if you're listening to this, today is a good time. So for a content focused team, maybe a team of one, maybe a team of 2 or 3, who owns social care? Because I'm curious, should it be a social media manager, a
Mhm.
community manager? Is that a VA? Is that a customer service rep? Because it's a little scary to own something and then be responsible for KPIs and all kinds of
Mhm.
stuff. And it's that, well, I think we should do it, but maybe I shouldn't be doing it. So who do you think owns that piece?
It's so funny that you asked this question because we just released our State of Social Care 2026 report, and we have a whole chapter dedicated to this because what we've seen is people don't know. Even
Yeah.
giant $70 billion brands don't know because marketing thinks they should own it. CX, obviously, customer experience, they're like, obviously, we should own it. Social's like, well, we're the ones on the front line, so we should own it. Support already kind of owns it, right? Because anytime you escalate something, like say you're working for a financial brand and you're the frontline, social care person on social media, you can't help someone with their balance or changing their password. You don't have access to that sensitive information. So you have to escalate that internally to support. So support's like, well, we already kind of own it, but we don't want to do social, right? So it's very disjointed. And I would say what we've seen in the 8 years that we've done social care for brands is that it's less about who owns it and more about alignment with those people. So
Mm.
really, it's how can these departments who really own it together. Don't forget sales, by the way. Sales is in there too. They should really all come together. It's like a Venn diagram of
Mhm.
sales, marketing, support, or CX, social, if social separated from marketing. And in the center of that Venn diagram would be where social care sits.
Oh, I love that. And I want to go back to the word you just said. Everybody wants to own it. Now, I think that is an interesting statement because I went into this question thinking everybody's going to say, I don't want to
Not
own
it.
it. Not it. So your experience is the other way that people
Mhm.
want to own it, but then they also know they need to work together, right? Or pass it off. And it's
Yeah.
interesting.
I think that's the biggest thing we see is really departments operating in silos. Like if you think about your customer support teams in general at a traditional company, right? They're usually, this isn't a knock on them, this is just literally how organizations are made up. They're usually the lowest paid, lowest educated team members, but they have the most data rich jobs. They hear first all of the complaints. They hear first all of the brand loves. They hear first all of the little sentiment meaning like how you feel about a brand or the product or the services. They see those sentiment shifts so early, like pre-crises basically, and yet we don't ever go ask them about
Mm.
customer information, customer journey mapping, customer sentiment, UGC, right? All of these things sit with them literally just by nature of their job. And yet sales and marketing typically make strategies and don't include them at all.
Mm.
So I think that's the biggest hiccup is the operating in silos and figuring out how do we become an orchestrated team, not
Mhm.
operating in silos and sharing data throughout so that we can all do better with our
Yeah, yeah.
job.
No, I'm currently working with a client where I came in as a content strategist and where I'm getting access to their sales calls as a way to get the transcript and to
Yes.
understand
Yes.
what the pain points are and what the good things are that people are saying about our company. So that we can use that to mirror back the things they say about us and what they want to know about us, right?
Yes.
So yeah, getting access to each other's data is actually really great and finding out that sentiment. So I love that you said that. And if you're watching this and you have a small team, that could be step one. Get
Mhm.
access to what the sales team's doing, watch the demos, see how they talk, find out what the questions are that people are asking about your product, about your company, and start with that as a basis for your content strategy. Now, if somebody is going to do or own social care, you just said everybody wants to take it. I thought it was going to be everybody, not it.
Well, I guess it depends on the individual level, but yes, there's a lot of that too.
So what are some of the core skills that somebody needs to be good at social care, especially when it's linked to a 70 billion brand voice? What, you have social, you offer this as a service. So what are you looking for when you hire somebody in social care?
It's less about the social itself and more about being the helpers. I think about Mr. Rogers, right? Find the helpers. So I'll give you an example. We have, I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, Marissa. Shout out, Marissa. She literally just celebrated her 6-year anniversary with us yesterday. And she started out as a community manager, right? The person on the front line answering these comments and questions. And she had 0 experience, but she came from a background where she was in service. So I look for people who've been in service before, right? Because you can train the platforms and the nuances, but with the accounts, but you can't train that real willingness and eagerness to solve someone else's problem, right? Most of us, we're like, that's your problem. That ain't my problem, right? So you have to find the people who are like really eager to help. So people who've been in hospitality, right? If you're in hospitality, as a given, almost you have been in service to people, especially if you've like worked at a front desk at a hotel, or if you've done customer service traditionally, right? By phone or email support, that still counts. People who have a background in nonprofit, or are heavily involved in volunteerism and giving back, these people have that innate need to help others out. And to us and to me, that is why I don't necessarily need to hire for like, do you have social care experience? I just want to know if you have that empathy built in and that willingness to go the extra mile to help someone else feel better or have a solution.
That's awesome. All right. So now we know why we need it. We know who sort of owns it, and we know what skills they need. So beyond skills, what kind of tools? I am assuming, as somebody who does social care for large enterprises, you probably have some robust, expensive tools. But if somebody's starting today, because they're listening to this and they're like, we're going to start social care, this is something we want to do, what are some tools out there or some ways that people can get started with social care for their brand, whether it's, small or really small?
You don't have to have the expensive tools. I'm tool agnostic. We've used them all. We use many of them. Some of them are, yes, quite large, because a lot of the social care tools out there just come with the expensive packages. So like, I guess Sprout Social would be on the lower end, but still very expensive. And then you've got like Sprinkler, Amplify, Quaros. They all have built-in customer support, ticketing, and metrics in those tools. However, you do not have to have a tool. My plea, please do this. My plea to you would be, go out, grab yourself a good old Excel spreadsheet and just see where conversations are happening for your brand online. And when I say this, I mean reactively and proactively. So reactively means when people come, like Dorien puts out a post about strategy talks and I come and I commented. I did it literally last night. Can't wait, right? I'm leaving her a comment on her post, but I came to her. So as a brand, that's reactive, because we're going, well, I posted this thing and now everybody's going to come have conversations with me. That's a great thing to have and get, but it doesn't always happen like that. You also have to use social listening to go out and proactively look for conversations around your brand, your products, your services, your stakeholders, where people aren't speaking directly to you, right? So there's conversations where people are talking directly to you, and there's conversations where people are talking about you, but they don't mention your brand online. So those notifications don't come to your inbox, right? So if I say, I'll give you a quick example. If I say, hey, at Nike, I love my new Air Jordans, Nike sees that because I've used the @ symbol and I've tagged Nike. But if I just go out on socials and I post a picture of my new Air Jordans and I say, oh my God, look how amazing my new Air Jordans are, wee, right? I haven't tagged anyone. So Nike wouldn't see that brand love or that UGC, user generated content post, because they're not using social listening. So I just want to make that quick inference. But I would start reactively. I would go out, I would look at all of the conversations that are happening around my brand and note that. Where are they happening the most? What do they comprise of? A lot of people think that the conversations are automatically going to be support related. Like, hey, I bought these Air Jordans and the laces were missing and I want a refund, or I want to return them, or send me my laces, right? But what we found is that about 20% of all conversations, at least for our clients on social, are actually sales related, meaning people are asking questions to the brand that are like, hey, where can I buy these Air Jordans? Where can I special order this type of Air Jordans? Where can I get special laces for my Air Jordans? These are sales support questions. And if they get left out there, guess what? You typically don't get that revenue or that sale. Right. So first things first, just go find out what conversations are happening, which platforms are happening on, and then we can go from there and start to what we call tag and label those conversations into different categories. So like the Air Jordan example, I would tag that as the product, Air Jordan, and then I would tag it with the sentiment, which AI does for you, but we'll get into that later. But it would say like positive if I'm saying like, I love these, squee, right? Or if it was negative, hey, my laces are missing, I would skew it that way as a product concern. That might be a shipping concern, right? This is something that could get fixed if it's a glitch in the matrix, as we call it.
I love that. So you're saying, for those of you who are listening, if you don't have an expensive tool, start categorizing, labeling, finding the conversations, and then figuring out what they're about, what the sentiment is, and then positive, negative, what people are talking about. I too have worked for a larger e-commerce brand where as the front social person, I would see some of those conversations. And I think at that time, nobody was really taking social care seriously.
Yeah.
And so some of those questions would come to me, which meant there was this stage approach where I would have to go to customer service and then they would reach out. But truth is that sometimes some of the conversations just weren't answered in time or at all, or to the satisfactory of the person. So I see where social care can come in there and really be an asset to a company. I saw 1,000%. That there where that was missing.
This is the other thing I preach about. I know you've heard me say it, but I'll say it for everybody who's watching or listening today, which is, we have heard as social media professionals for 100 years, social media doesn't have an ROI. Yes, it does. And especially when you start to think about the conversations that are happening on social, whether you want to call it social care or social media engagement or whatever, it's called many different things, right? But if you start to look at all the conversations, write them down, even if it's in a spreadsheet, even a tool like Agorapulse, by the way, which is a much like a regular quote unquote social media management tool, but they even have tagging and labeling. So inside of their tool, you can tag and label these conversations. But find the conversations, just tag and label, start here. Sales conversation, meaning they want to buy. Support conversation, meaning they need help. And then tag sentiment, as Dorien said. So negative, positive, neutral. So was the conversation good? Was it bad? Was it, nothing, meh, in the middle, which still is not great. But still, just put those things down. The amount of data and insight that you'll start to give yourself around these conversations that are happening might look something like this. Well, on Facebook, we get a lot of engagement, but none of it leads to ROI, which would be saving a client, support, or selling a client, sales, right? But on Instagram, we get a ton of sales support questions, people who are asking where to buy, how to buy, give me, they're trying to give us their money. Well, now when it comes time to budget, and we know Facebook goes bananas with engagement, but nothing leads to retaining a customer or selling a customer. But we know on Instagram, we could actually finish out those conversations and sell those customers. And budgets are getting cut right now. Who am I going to cut? I'm going to cut Facebook because I know on Instagram I have potential to bring in revenue through my social media activities. So, I mean, I understand what I'm asking is a totally different way of thinking about social, but it's also how you get to revenue from social, which makes stakeholders pay attention, which means hopefully your budgets don't get slashed because you're
Right.
proving the value of social every day.
Yeah. All right. This is so helpful. I think this is so helpful. And you kind of sort of already answered this, but I'm going to dive a little bit deeper. What does a weekly workflow look like for a team if they were to manage both the content publishing and social care? Is that something they can do simultaneously? Is that
Oh, yeah.
something it's with intention? What would that look like?
Yeah. So when we talk about conversational content at B Squared, what we are saying is when we have clients who do both social care and social media management. So with social care, we don't touch content, right? We're just talking about those conversations. But when we do both of the services, content and the conversations, our whole goal with every single piece of content is creating those conversations. So we want to create what we call talk-worthy content or conversational content on social. So we're using polls, we're asking questions, we're sharing opinions and feelings as the brand because we're humans, right? This is very nerdy, but I did my undergraduate thesis on this, and it's called the social penetration theory. Terrible name, brilliant concept. But essentially, what it says is as human beings, when we're vulnerable with one another, when we go past like cliches and factual talk and get into opinions and feelings, we actually build connections faster. We build trust and loyalty faster. Relationships form. So we know that we have to get a little bit vulnerable in our posts, our conversational posts, sharing opinions and feelings, because humans have this thing called reciprocity, and they'll share opinions and feelings back. If we knew the opinions and feelings of our customers and would-be customers, couldn't we better market and sell to them? Yes. So literally, we're creating content to spark conversations, to filter through those conversations, to look for those support and retention areas. So where can we find revenue inside of these conversations? Your content has to make sure that you are pushing for those conversations to happen. And the more you do that, the more of a talkative brand you become, and the easier it becomes for you to get people to speak with you very candidly, which just makes things a lot easier. And people are just a lot nicer too.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. Absolutely. Absolutely great. Well, you answered the next question, which is great. So I have a question about if a founder or a consultant, a solopreneur, maybe doing this solo, what's one simple like daily habit or system or something that makes that social care sustainable for somebody to do that? Does that mean as they do the polls, they share more of themselves?
Yeah, I think, you need the brand, even if it's your solo brand, right? Needs to be comfortable about what you're going to share and not share, right? So that's a subjective line for all brands, right? Some brands are much more buttoned up, especially in like say regulated industries, right? They're not going to go out there and be like, we feel this way about climate change. But look at the brand Patagonia. They talk about climate change all the time, but they do this. Yes, it's a feeling. Yes, it's an opinion. Yes, it's a moral standard. But they also know that their most important customer is an outdoors person who also very much cares about the environment. So they're finding places to be vulnerable where it aligns them the closest with their best buying audience, right? So it's not like coming on here and being like, oh man, I had blood work done and it wasn't so good, right? I'm not being vulnerable in that personal way. I'm being vulnerable in a way that my audience can understand. Like, so for instance, if we're talking about highly regulated enterprise sized brands, the risk of not responding quickly, especially when something is negative, opens you up to a world of hurt. Not responding is the risk, right? That's being vulnerable for that particular audience. So figure out where you feel comfortable being vulnerable, where it's going to align most closely with your ICP, ideal customer profile.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, you working with enterprise brands a lot, is there one thing that somebody who's in a small team can steal that you're like, well, because we started this conversation is like, yeah, of course it all applies,
Yeah.
but if there's one thing that
One thing.
somebody could use.
The one thing I would say everybody should be doing, find a way to make this happen. I don't care if it's in a spreadsheet or if you use, you can use it. If you can use a tool because obviously the human effort of putting things into a spreadsheet becomes very tedious. But you can use a tool. You must tag and label all of your conversations. And we have wild tagging and labeling nomenclatures, depending on the client, because we're tagging by product. We're tagging maybe by issue type. So if we see a lot of different issues, we want to tag by issue types. We might even have categories for those issue types, like return issue, shipping issue, packaging issue, right? Because when you tag and label all of these conversations, it allows you to slice and dice all of those data sets in a way that can easily surface, okay, our top 3 concerns for the whole entirety of 2025 were these 3 things. How can we as a brand fix those things, right? Of course we can keep telling people, oh, the workaround is XYZ, or oh, call into support, but that costs you money, right? So if you can figure out how to fix those top 3 reoccurring issues, you're averting crises, you're averting churn, you're saving money, right? And also from the sales side of it, if people are asking you how to give you their money, you need to figure out how to take that money right there on the channel of choice, right? Reduce friction to purchase. So if you come, Dorien, to my shoe, I'm on a shoe kick today. If you come
You
to my
are.
shoe page and you're like, hey, do y'all have these in my size? I want to answer her as quickly as possible because I know she's in that buying moment. If she's asking about sizing, she's looked at the shoe, she's tried it on in her mind, she knows where she's wearing it to her next event. I need to, as quickly as possible, answer her, yes, we have it in your size. Slide into our DMs. I've got a little something, something for you. Now she's like, what do you mean? She slides into our DMs. We give her a promo code that the social care team uses for free shipping, a free pair of laces, whatever it is. She buys those shoes and uses our promo code. That revenue is now attributed to social media and social care.
All
So
right.
that is how we start to get stakeholders to pay attention to social media. We do have to prove the ROI, but this is how you do it. So tag and label
Everything.
everything.
Yeah, that actually was going to be my last question as we're getting towards the end of this conversation is how do we measure success of a social care campaign, and how often do you, I mean, I'm assuming there's reports all the time, but
Mhm.
for a small team, would you consider a monthly report, a quarterly, like kind of reset? What do you recommend for somebody to, that all that data, if you're tagging and doing all that,
Mhm.
um, what do you need to do with that data and how often?
The simplest, most impactful, and it's the smallest report, by the way. The most impactful thing that we do is what we heard loops, and they happen every week. And so every week we're looking at those tags and those labels, and we're saying to sales, to marketing, to product, right? We're not operating in a silo. We're sharing the data, support, and we're saying, here's what we heard this week. The top 3 concerns or issues were X, Y, and Z. The top 3 sales or, potential revenue moments were 1, 2, 3. You want people to stop leaving their siloing and start coming to you for information and data, and for them to see the value in what you do. Start running those what we heard loops every week, and everybody's going to be knocking down your door. And that's just the easiest, simple. Again, this is not some sort of tool or like 70-page deck, which we do those too, but this is the most impactful, easiest thing to do, especially if you're a solopreneur.
All right. Well, Brooke, you've given all of us so much fantastic information. And it goes way beyond, responding to, a comment or responding to a conversation, but being part of the conversation, tagging it, in the background, and then using that information to, gather all that data to make smarter decisions about your business and sharing that along all the different departments, even if you're a small team. So I really loved our conversations. If somebody has been listening to this or watched this and they want to connect with you, they want to learn more about you, where are you most active and where can they find you?
I hang out on LinkedIn. That is my favorite platform by far. So you can just find me at Brooke Sellas. I think I'm the only Brooke Sellas on the planet. You can just Google Brooke Sellas, BROOKESELLAS, or you can go to our website at bsquared.media. We've got all of our socials linked there. Send me a message, give me a wave, reach out. I'm so eager to talk to you about all of this because I know it's a new way of thinking, but I also know you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is eye-opening. And I think this is a great conversation to be having with those of you who serve clients going into 2026 and really understanding what the humans that are using your product, your services are saying about you and how you can serve them better and how you can really retain them and, get more people to come your way, right? So social care, I absolutely love this conversation. If you did too, let us know. We do have a new community on School. Would love for you to join that. It's very small, but it's growing. So come to Strategy Talk School community. There'll be a link in the show notes. Brooke, thank you so much for being with me live this morning. It was fantastic to have you here. I'll be back next week with another episode of Strategy Talks. Thank you, everybody. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.